It's awesome to be speaking to you, Max, because I was a big fan of this movie. Had a lot of fun watching you as Festus Creed. And no offense, he's kind of obnoxious. He's pretty rude, but for you as an actor, that's got to be
Yeah,
a lot of
I get
fun.
that. Yeah, I've had that from a few people. Sometimes I get dirty looks from people on the street now. I was at dinner the other night, and I noticed some people a couple of tables over just like looking at me with a really horrible face, and I thought I'd done something just really gross to offend them, and then I kind of realized, oh no, surely not. But yeah, no, it's fun to play the villain, I think. And I don't see Festus as a villain. I don't really believe that he is. But I know that there's love lost for a lot of people. No love lost, rather. Uh, and it was super fun to be able to lean into that almost slightly campy, quite ridiculous capital way of being just nasty. But it's it's sometimes it's fun to be nasty.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you about him not necessarily being a villain. He's a
Mm,
fun character in a lot of ways, even though he is, pretty straightforward. But he is a big supporter of the games, which obviously makes him a bit
yep.
controversial. So, what was your take on that, and why he is so behind the capital in that way?
I kind of saw it as representation of the disconnect that exists between when you grow up in the capital, you just don't really have even a conception of what is happening out in the districts. When I was sort of developing Festus as a character, I was thinking about his relationship with the games, and I kind of thought like, well, it would make sense to me that he's been watching these since he was a kid, um, and has kind of developed a sort of fandom of them and has really been waiting for this chance to kind of get involved in some way. And then when this opportunity is presented to him, he's so excited, and he's taking mentoring Coral really seriously. There's that scene where we kind of sit down and we're talking strategy. And I think for me it was really lovely because I had the opportunity to play being really excited, which was easy because I was really excited the whole time. So I kind of allowed my own excitement to be involved with something that I'd been watching since I was a kid to kind of come into the character. It made it really easy for me.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love the dynamic as well between Festus and Snow. So working with Tom, that must have been fun to explore that relationship.
Yeah, it was really lovely. I mean, Tom is just an absolute dream to work with. He's such a talented actor, and there was a real shortage of British faces on set. So having him, even though he's gone over to the dark side and moved to America, it was nice to have him there. He's such a generous actor as well, and I think that you know we really got the time to develop our slightly spatty, catty relationship. Um, I'm not sure how Coria feels. I think only Tom can know that, but I know that Festus, for all the teasing, does love him deep down, and I think just really wants to be his friend. Um, but he'd never show it.
Yes, it's such an interesting one there. And of course, then on the other hand, you're sharing the screen with actors like Peter Dinklage, Viola Davis, obviously Jason Schwartzman. That must have been a great almost learning experience for you as well to bounce back and forth off actors like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about training as an actor, and I never formally trained. I never went to drama school, but I was saying that getting to sit on set for 2 weeks and watch Viola Davis act is the greatest masterclass in that craft that you could ever wish for. I think there's the perfect mix of kind of, yeah, you're intimidated by working with people who genuinely are legends within the industry, and that all of us look up to. Um, and then just the awe of actually getting to watch them do their thing. I sat whenever I was on set with Peter or Jason or Verla or anyone, 85% of my time was just sat there, even if I wasn't on camera, watching them and studying what they were doing. Because it was it's a gold mine watching people like that work. Um, and it was a blessing to have them be so supportive to us, and as quite a young cast, and really help us kind of find our way through making such a huge movie.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much how incredible that must have been. But then, of course, you're also
Mm,
working with Mackenzie as Coral. There's that great back and forth. You mentioned the table scene a little bit earlier, but
yeah.
how did you find working with Coral on those scenes and developing that? I don't want to say love hate, maybe hate hey. I'm not sure how it was really.
I mean, from my end, it's all love. I, uh, I love Mackenzie, and she was someone who I became incredibly close to. And we spent a lot of time kind of figuring that relationship out. Um, they're almost foils to each other because I think at the end of the day, they both want the same thing, but neither of them are going to admit it. Um, and I think, in another life, maybe they could have been friends. Um, but, circumstances were what they were. Um, but I think that, just getting to find our way through that and explore that relationship for me as an actor was just wonderful because I got to sit there and work with Mackenzie. And even if, we weren't on set the same day, because, I would have loved to spend 6 months just making a movie, the two of us. That's how much I loved working with her. There were moments even when I wasn't on set with her that I felt like I would be able to, call her up and ask her thoughts on it, because I think we both approach our work in a really similar way. Um, and props to the whole team, the whole production team, for kind of casting us opposite each other, because I think we found that we worked in a really compatible way, and that's such a joy when you kind of find yourself opposite someone as an actor and you go, yes, we get this, we get how each other thinks. It just makes the process so natural.
Yeah, I imagine so. And it's, like you said, such a highlight of the film, I think, the two of you
Mm,
together. And of course, this is a massive movie. You're working on those big sets, like where the TV monitors are, for example, or even that
mm,
zoo scene, which I think is a memorable one. So what was it like
yeah.
for you to come onto a movie like this and be taken into that world of the Hunger Games?
Oh, I mean, it was crazy. I cut my teeth on the British indie circuit, so I am used to working on films with a crew of maybe 35, 40 people. We had something like 300 on this. It really was just totally overwhelming. But having such beautiful sets kind of made me feel a lot more at home, and able to kind of really get into those scenes. Because when you see those, you mentioned the scene with the big screens, like, they were there just for us to see. Very, very little of what you see in the capital is, computer generated. There was such a commitment on our end to making everything feel tactile and lived in, which was important for the time period. Um, and it was brilliant because every day I got to step on to this. It was like being in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It was every single day it was, wow, look at that, that's so big. Um, and every time someone's face came up on the big screen, I was that meme of Leo DiCaprio in front of the TV. Um, and yeah, I mean, more than anything, it was just so cool. And then awesome to see how they came to life in the film as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And just one final question for you, Max. Mike,
Yeah.
I feel like you probably obviously know Festus Creed as well as Suzanne Collins, as you've got into his boots and you've played him. So if he were to be thrown into the Hunger Games, how do you think he's going to cope in there? He seems like a pretty clever guy. So
I think Festus I think the answer that Festus would give you is probably slightly different from the truth. I think he's been thinking about this for an awful long time. Would he fight? Would he rush for something? Would he flee and hide? Um, and I actually think that, despite having planned out every possible exit strategy and every possible permutation of how he might end up winning the games, I think he'd probably just panic. I wouldn't be surprised if he was dead in the first day or the first hour, because you know, bless him, he's been a bit pampered, and I don't really know how he'd fare fighting for his life.
Oh, always a fun one to think about. But
that's
Max,
that's that's one for Suzanne to write.
yeah, fingers crossed, because I know I'd love a sequel to this one, but I'm excited for people to check this movie out at home. And Max, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed what you did as this
Thank
character
you
and had
so
a great
much.
time with the movie.
Of course, I appreciate you having my name behind you to remind me of it.
Perfect. Cheers, Max. Have a good one.
Beautiful.